Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jessica Felix.
And I'm Maddie Lancaster, and welcome to ABC News. Today we're getting an inside look on Nixon's administration with special guest Vice President Spiro Agnew.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me.
Vice President Agnew, can you explain to us Nixon's New Federalism and what its goal was?
In entering office in '69, Nixon was determined to turn America in a more conservative direction. One of the main objectives of his in doing so would be to decrease the size and influence of the federal government, which would counteract LBJ's Great Society programs. New federalism was to distribute a portion of federal power to state and local governments, which would allow them to spend their federal dollars as they saw fit within limitation.
In what ways did Nixon strengthen and weaken federal governments?
Although the federal government weakened due to impounded funds and the abolishment of the Office of Economic Opportunity, Nixon was able to strengthen it with an increase of federal spending for social programs, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and availability of food stamps.
What was Nixon's Southern strategy and how was it implemented?
It was an approach to appeal to the Southerners about their unhappiness with both federal desegregation policies and a liberal Supreme Court. Through this, he also promised to make a Southerner part of the Supreme Court. He began implementing this strategy by trying to reverse civil rights policies and delay desegregation plans, like the Voting Rights Act of 1965. He also opposed integration so much that he went on a national television to tell Congress to stop the practice, which made his position clear to the country. Nixon also appealed to the Southerners' distaste in a liberal court by implementing 4 justices who were more conservative than the previous 4. However, they didn't always take the conservative route.
What factors brought on the country's economic problems in the late 1960s and early 1970s?
Inflation was one of the main causes of our economic problems, which came from Lyndon B. Johnson's policy to fund the war and social programs through deficit spending. Increased competition in international trade and our heavy dependence on foreign oil also contributed to the issue. We would get our petroleum from countries in the Middle East, and they would gradually and constantly raise their oil prices. So this only worsened our inflation problem.
What was the philosophy of Realpolitik?
Realpolitik, meaning political realism in German, was a belief that foreign policy should be based solely on consideration of power, not ideas or moral principles. Nixon's advisor for national security affairs and later Secretary of State promoted this and believed in evaluating a nation's power, not its philosophy or beliefs.
And lastly, how did Nixon's trip change the United States' relationship with China?
Nixon's visit resulted in positivity, success, and important agreements between us and China. We both agreed to try not to dominate the Pacific and to settle disputes peacefully. China also agreed to participate in scientific and cultural changes.
Thank you, Vice President Agnew, for joining us today. And now on to sports.
It all started in 1869, and now each week it's college football on ABC. The score, Michigan State 18, Iowa 12. Famous American professional boxer heavyweight champion Rocky Marciano dies in plane crash on August 31st, 1969. Rocky and 2 other men were killed when their single-engine Sensa 172 lost power, struck a tree, and crashed into a pasture in central Iowa. The 2 other victims have been identified as Glenn Bletz at age 37 and Frank Garl of age 28. The undefeated Rocky, with a consecutive 49 victories in a row, passed 1 day shy of his 46th birthday.
Just in, during the 1972 Summer Munich Olympics, game on September 5th, a group of Palestinian terrorists, a part of a group called the Black September, stormed the Olympic Village for Israel athletes, killing 2 and capturing 9 hostages. The Palestinian terrorists demanded that Israel release over 230 Arab prisoners being held in Israel jails, and 2 German terrorists in return for the 9 hostages, who will be later be killed along with 5 terrorists and 1 West German policeman in a shootout in Munich airport. The game have been suspended for 24 hours to hold a memorial service for the slain athletes.
It's a real thing.
The Nixon scandal led to an imprisonment of 25 government officials in a constitutional crisis.
These alternative facts we are talking about is known as the Watergate Scandal. The Watergate Scandal was Nixon's administration's attempt to cover up the burglary of the Democratic National Committee headquarters at the Watergate office in Washington, D.C.
When President Nixon is the talk of a conversation, it's mainly for his alternative facts he told during his presidency. Nixon's scandal led to imprisonment of 25 government officials in a constitutional crisis.
Breaking news. We are being told we have a clip of James McCord talking about the Watergate scandal. Now on to you, Amy.
Good afternoon, Mr. McCord. Good afternoon. As you said in your letter, you had part in the Watergate scandal. Did anyone high up in the Nixon administration have part in it as well? Mr. George Liddy, the chief operative in the White House plumbers. What did he do? He communicated with me with wiretapping and reported back to the Attorney General. So did the Attorney General also take part in the Watergate scandal? Yes. Well, thank you, Mr. McCord, for your known information. Now back to the reporters.
We are being told in Nixon's television appearance that he does not believe that there is any attempt at a cover-up and announces that he is appointing a new Attorney General, Elliot Richardson, and authorizes him to hire a special prosecutor to investigate Watergate.
Answers have been revealed from a shocking source from the president's aide, Alexander Butterfield. Butterfield admitted the taping system was made in order to help Nixon write his memories, but the Senate claims that the tapes are an essential of what Nixon knew and when he knew it.
We are being notified that President Nixon has failed to reveal his releasing of 1,254 pages of edited transcripts of White House conversations about Watergate and failed to follow the demand of the unedited tapes by investigators. Details prove that the president may be involved with criminal activity, but Nixon believes that he did nothing wrong, claiming that he is not a crook.
This just in. The House Judiciary Committee has distinguished that there is enough evidence to impeach President Nixon. We are going to switch to our interview with Mrs. Barbara Jordan, a member of the House Judiciary Committee, where she will explain her reasoning for the impeachment. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Miss Barbara.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me.
I would just like to say that if the impeachment provision in the Constitution of the United States will not reach the offense charge here, then perhaps the 18th century Constitution should be abandoned to a 20th century paper shredder. And I want to add something. Has the president committed offenses and planned and directed and acquisited in a course of conduct which the Constitution will not tolerate? That's the question. We know that. We know the question. We should now forthwith proceed to answer the question. It is reason and not passion. We must guide our deliberations, guide our debate, and guide our decision.
Thank you so much for your time.